Hey, Susan Lazar-Hart here, your congruency coach, creator of the Congruent Living Academy, the Congruent Method, and the Congruent Living Self-Assessment. Hey, have you gone to my new site? It's kind of exciting. Get on over there, SusanLazarHart.com. We've created a brand new site, more user-friendly with all kinds of options and goodies for you. Check it out. And, just write in here. Let me know what you're thinking. Today, speaking of thinking, is a question that lots of people have been asking me. The American Thanksgiving is coming up. Ours, Canadian one, just was over. There's going to be lots of holiday celebrations and people gathering over the next month as we head into December. And a lot of people are saying, oh, what do I do, Susan? I can't stand it. I can't stand being with my family. My mother always makes me eat this. My father always expects that. My brother never does this. My sister, you get the idea, right? So you notice none of these have to do with being in the present, right? When we often go towards something that we don't really want to participate in, we bring our stories with us. And that's what we're going to be playing with today. Hey, Catherine, welcome, welcome, welcome. So if you're watching this now, tell us where you're from. We have an international community. Come on in. If you're watching this later, #replay, and let me know your thoughts. By the way, this is not just a dialogue or monologue. It also is a conversation. That's why this was created about 15 years ago under the auspices of Ask Susan. It's about asking me questions of what's working, what's not working, based on specific themes that we play with from the questions that you write me. And that's why I love to receive your questions, because it's all about being in the question. So let's start with the beginning. When you were very little, you, even as a baby, and before a baby, if you were talked to by your mom or your dad as you were in the womb, you were told stories. Stories about who was expecting you, stories about what your life would be like as you came out of that canal. You chose this mother to slide out of. They said, oh, you have your father's this, your mother's that. As you grew up a little bit more, you were told you had your aunt's temperament. You're just like. You were told things like, in this family, this is what we do. You were told these traditions are important to us. And then you were told another story. Are you kind of getting the idea that when we go towards something, a family occasion, a gathering of relatives, we go with this baggage of stories. And so if you're going towards a family occasion, like the American Thanksgiving coming up, with all of this baggage with you, it has nothing to do with you being in the present. It has nothing to do with choice. It has to do with you're putting out a vibration to match the story that you're holding on to. And we all have stories, right? We all have stories about family reunions, family relationships, who in the family, what in the family, what traditionally somebody brings or doesn't bring. Stories that were passed down to us, stories that we were trained to. The media is filled with stories. You open a magazine, it's about a story. They're advertising how to tell a good story now. TEDx, it's TED Talks, it's all Netflix, whatever it is, that it's all about stories. Right? What's your story? When you meet somebody, you ask, oh, so hi, what do you do? And they start to tell you a story. And generally, it's about a story that doesn't work. Now, I know you're going to find that a little strange, but here's the deal. We create a false sense of intimacy by comparing stories about what isn't working. We start off with something light and zoom, go right into what isn't working. And somebody says back to you, oh, I know how you feel. Or, oh my gosh, I can't believe your mother, father, sister, brother, aunt, uncle, child said that to you. So you create this false sense of intimacy based on stories. And we use these stories to rationalize who, what, or how we are being, or who somebody should be, or always has been. So we give that meaning. Now, not only does this rationalization allow us to create a reason, a justification, a judgment for the quote-unquote situation we're in, if we look on the opposite side of it, it's just plain and simple the excuses that we tell ourselves of what's going on. And once again, just to kind of go back to where we began, if you come to anything, it could be your business, your life, your living, your relationship in the bed, whatever that is for you, your children, how they act or interact with you. It doesn't have to be a family occasion. Anything that you come to, if you come to with a story of what should be working, of what hasn't worked, you are not actually being present. You're creating a vibration, and we know everything is out here for you. You're creating a vibration that matches what your expectation is of what you will receive. So then you hear yourself saying, you see, I told you she would say that, or I told you he would do that. Is this starting to make sense? Can I see some thumbs up, some hearts, some, no, Susan, this makes no sense, something in the comments? I'd love to hear your reaction. I've been throwing a lot at you really quickly. I just looked at the time. I'm like, oh my gosh. I've been throwing it in. I tend to deep dive, for those of you who don't know me and are getting to know me. I'm so grateful that you're here. It's, if you can just, Joseph Campbell talked about the stories that we tell ourselves. We all have surface stories. I can remember, sitting in the car with a girlfriend. The best place to have one of those stories was after a liquid dinner with the girls. And when we'd be sitting in the car in my driveway or her driveway after I'm letting them off, and we tend to get into those stories. And an hour has passed and we're still in the driveway and we're still telling those stories. And can you relate? Notice it doesn't create anything greater. It creates that false sense of intimacy of, oh, you know how I feel. But the thing is, how much are you actually asking to shift and change that story, that family story, whatever that is? Now, if somebody, when you say, well, my mother, my father, whatever, my sister, whoever that is, whenever we're all together, they push my buttons. Well, here's the deal on getting your buttons pushed. You have to have a button to be pushed. So if there's something about whatever they're saying that's causing you to react in a way that doesn't create greater, not with an open heart, not out of love, that means that you actually have whatever that is, that alignment within you. And so it's about doing the work and asking yourself these questions. What is it? What's the meaning I'm giving to this? What's the meaning I'm giving to this? So where am I actually validating their point of view by reacting? What would it look like if I actually expanded out with no point of view? It's like, wow, thank you so much. That's really interesting. Actually doesn't work for me. Being in total loving allowance of where this person's coming from. You see, if you're willing to be in the question rather than holding on to your story of who, what, where, how, what always happens, it might actually shift and change something for you. But you have to be willing to want and desire that change. Like Napoleon Hill talks about, it has to be like a deep, hot desire that cuts through the stories for something greater to show up. And so I wonder, as we approach this holiday season, what would it be like for you to actually choose for you? Now, in choosing for you, you're choosing for your knowing, for being an allowance, for what brings you joy, for what creates space for you. So is there anything that you stop doing when you're with your family, when you're with that, in that festive, quote unquote, festive holiday season? Is there anything that you've given up about you in order to mold and shift yourself into somebody else's point of view? Because that actually doesn't work. Now, you don't have to be the rebel. I've been that lots of times for lots of reasons and lots of seasons. But what I've discovered is, if I'm actually willing to be in my knowing and actually offer someone choice, whether they choose it or not, I know I'm being in the question. And I know, I'll give you an example. When my parents were separated when I was around 21, divorced, and I started having my family and my brothers and their family and everybody together. And my mother kept insisting that for specific holiday seasons, we would have two different celebratory dinners, let's put it that way. And so I would do that until I got to that stage where I started really investigating myself more and discovering, oh, there's a different way to be with all this, without the drama, without the trauma. It's about being in question and actually being clear about what works for me. So it came upon where my mom was saying, okay, so, we'll do it here, and then you can do the next night at your father's, or your home with your father. And I said, actually, you know what, Mom, I appreciate that, but it actually doesn't work for me. So I'm going to give you some choices here. We can either do it here at your home where I'll cook everything and everybody's invited, Dad, everybody. Or we can have it at my home in which everybody's invited and you'll come to my home. Now I knew that wasn't really a great option for her because my bathroom's on the second floor and she couldn't do a lot of stairs. So she knew that as well. And she just looked at me and I was total loving allowance. Here's what works for me. Here are the options. Mom, you have to choose. Whatever you choose, I acknowledge that. And she just said, well, I don't want to be alone. And I said, I totally get where you're coming from. And I didn't say anything. I said, you know what? In my mind, be quiet. Let her be with this. And she looked at me and she said, okay, your dad can come. So we shifted and changed that tradition of me making all these different meals and pleasing everybody to actually being present. We had a wonderful dinner. My dad came, my mom was there. She goes, oh, wow, this was really great. I didn't realize how old your dad's gotten. Like time heals all. And everybody had a wonderful time. Now, I'm telling you this story because I too had my stories that I was going in. She had her stories that she was bringing in. And when I said, no, this actually doesn't work for me, in the work that I've been doing on myself, in studying transformation, in studying mindset, and studying being present, I realized there was a totally different way to be than the way that I was brought up. And that's how I'm celebrating all this information with you, with my clients, and how we work with the Academy, but being totally present with what comes up and then being with it from there and asking these questions. And again, let's go back to the questions. What is the meaning I'm giving this? And here's your home play, right? There, American Thanksgiving's on Thursday, so you do have time. What part of this meaning am I using as self-identification? What part of this meaning is I'm the one that always has to. Right? That would be self-identification. No one understands me. That would be self-identification. Nobody listens to me. You starting to get that? All of that. What part of this meaning, what's the meaning I'm giving to this? And I would ask also, is this true? Is this really true? What part of this meaning am I using as self-identification? Does that add to my life and living and where I'm asking to be and grow from? What story am I telling myself? What story am I telling myself? And as Joseph Campbell would say, what is the ancient story that I'm telling myself? Now, if you're willing to be present with these questions, you're going to come up with clues, right? You're going to come up with clues. When you come up with a clue, just ask yourself, is this true? Does this add to my life and living? Are you willing to be present? That's the law of receiving. I talk a lot about all the different laws there are. Here's just some of the work I'm doing now with Raymond Hollywell, working with the law. And he talks about in the law of receiving, that everything is here for you. It's just about you rising and being present with what it is in total loving alignment, that's congruent living, of what you're asking to create. So once again, we're not stuck by outside circumstances. We're just stuck by the meaning that we give them and the stories we tell ourselves about them. Again, I'm giving you your home play, and I always ask, is this true? Is this true for me? What am I asking to create here? What are you asking to create here? What is it you truly desire? So, any questions, any ahas, any comments coming on in here? I'd love to hear from you. You know, as always, people reach out to me privately, and I appreciate that. And also just come on into our Facebook, our Congruent Living Facebook, where we can keep this conversation going. I really appreciate all of you writing me in and asking me, Susan, can we talk about those stories? Because for the most part, we have not acknowledged that they're stories. We were told this is your history. This is what always happens. Well, there is no such thing. If you're willing to live in the present, live now, what is it that you're asking to create? And how would you like that to be for you? Remember, you are the pebble that goes into the pond that creates the ripples, that creates the change that you've been asking for. So I don't see any questions today. Again, come on in later. And if as we're heading into the end of 2022, if you're stuck and you're saying, oh man, this is not what I thought, you know, I always ask you to ask that question. How would I like my life to be a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now? If it's not what you thought, reach out to me, right? Reach out to me. Either DM me. I'm always ready for you I respond right away for those of you who know me. And or go to congruentliving.as.me/path, and let's get on a call together. Let's find that path that you're asking for. And I wonder what we can change together. So as we head into that Thanksgiving for those Americans, and for all of you around the world, as you're heading into your holiday season, listen to this again, write down those questions, and let me know what pops for you. Because if you're willing to live boldly and love greatly, that means living boldly from within, not from without, from within, loving greatly from within, and being that fearless leader you came here to be. One who's willing to let go of the stories of what they can't be and step into a brand new path as we head into 2023. I love you. Thank you so much. And have an amazing day. Thanks for joining me.